Being a patient partner means that I join a research team as an equal member, which means that I have rights and responsibilities. And my responsibility is to bring to the table my personal experience of living with a certain condition and make sure that this perspective is heard and seen in every step of the project. In other words, patients reading about our study must be able to identify with our work and to recognize their own experiences, their needs, etc. And I think this only can be done if the team takes my input really seriously and treat me as an equal, as an expert in my own right. And that means I'm being invited to all meetings, I receive all materials, I'm asked for my opinion, and that I feel safe and welcome and things like that. So it's a two-way process. So I take their input seriously and discuss things when opinions differ and do the things that I'm supposed to do. And I ask for explanations when things are new or difficult to understand.
I am involved in several research projects, including the European Consortium Necessity focused on Sjogren's disease. PRPs are involved in every single work package where they can bring the patient's perspective, validate some decisions, and give their inputs on the strategic choices.
Patients can have different roles in research. They can be a participant in a study, for instance, in a clinical study in which a new medication is tested. That is not strictly a role of collaboration, though. And when talking about collaborating with researchers, a patient can be a respondent, for instance, in a survey or a focus group. And this is still a one-way collaboration. Or they can be an advisor, for instance, in how to best recruit patients for a study. And then the final decision will be up to the research team. But a role in which your influence as a patient is bigger is as a reviewer, for instance, in a grant application or a manuscript. And this gives a substantial influence on final decisions, but without any formal responsibilities. And finally, a patient research partner, that is a way for a patient to properly collaborate, which means being part of a team and thus share responsibilities and be involved in a long-term two-way relationship. And finally, a patient or a patient association can initiate or fund and conduct research themselves. And in that case, patients are in the lead. But all these roles differ in their commitment, in time commitment, amount of influence in the research process itself, their complexity, and thus in required competences.
The PRP will give his opinion on the design of the study. For example, how many times the patient will have to go to the hospital, how the drug will be administered. The PRP can also give its opinion on the questionnaires used to assess the treatment during the trial, the relevance of the clinical endpoints selected. The PRP will also be asked to review the information and consent sheet to make sure it is understandable by all patients and will help write a lay version of the protocol to give to the patient included in the trial. The PRP can also be asked to communicate toward patient communities about the trial and, most importantly, disseminate the results. In clinical research, the PRP needs to be involved as soon as possible in order to give his opinion on the protocol, the study design. The PRP also helps identify the unmet needs, the clinical endpoints which are relevant to patients, and validate the protocol of the clinical trial. In some cases, the PRP can be asked to validate and legitimate a study already ongoing. And finally, the PRP can also be invited at the end of a research to express its opinion and bring an honest view from the patient community perspective.
Well, we just discussed roles that patients can have in research, which can range from being a listener or an advisor to being an equal research partner. And there are basically 3 stages in a project. The first is the preparation part, then the execution of the project and the implementation. And depending on the project, these different roles can be useful at different stages and can even alternate throughout the project. And being a patient research partner, personally, it brought me a lot. I learned new things about my disease, about research in general. I met a lot of new people who became friends. I learned new skills like presenting, writing articles, being in interviews. I improved my English, but also, and very, very importantly, being a patient advocate and a patient research partner brought me purpose and meaning when the myositis ended my professional career and my paid job.
I was put on disability at the age of 46, with a bitter feeling that I was no longer useful to anyone. Being a PRP and a patient representative has given me a second life, a useful role for the society, for my community, at my own rhythm. I learned a lot. I met some wonderful people, and I have the hope to contribute to help make a difference for patients and heart disease.